Reading with your kids.
Hola, ni hao, konnichiwa, assalamu alaikum, shalom, mahaba, ciao, bonjour, namaste, jumbo, bienvenidos. Hey, my name is Jedley. This is Reading with Your Kids. We are beaming out to you and the entire planet from the lovely book-loving neighborhood of Reedville, the coolest little neighborhood in all of Boston. We are so thrilled that you are joining us. At Reading with Your Kids, our mission is simple but powerful: to bring families together through the shared magic of books and stories. In every episode, we sit down with fascinating folks who are creating books that open hearts and spark imaginations. If you want to help us grow this mission, it's really easy. All you have to do is to tell all of your family and friends about the show and let them know that they can hear us on the WREB AM FM 24/7 radio network. And they can find us on the iHeart Radio app, on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Good Pods, Podcast Addict, YouTube. Wherever you find your favorite shows, you can find Reading with Your Kids. Really fun show for you today. You are going to learn something about me that I think will surprise you during my interview with our first guest, Jaylene Clark Owens. She's here to celebrate a black girl and her braids. Later in the show, we're going to take a listen back to a conversation we had with Liz Leonard. This episode of Reading with Your Kids is brought to you by the Fred the Snake series, written by Dr. Peter Cotton. I just got back from the COSPA National Education Conference. 1,500 school leaders from across the country. And I have to tell you, one of the biggest smiles at our booth came from a little snake named Fred. We were sharing the Fred the Snake book series, and again, superintendents and educators were drawn in by the bright, colorful illustrations. They'd pick up a book, start flipping through it, and you could just see it. They got it. These are the kinds of stories kids want to read. But you know what really stopped them in their tracks? When I told them that the author, Dr. Peter Cotton, was a world-renowned gastroenterologist and teacher before he began writing children's books. And suddenly it clicked. Here's someone who spent a lifetime helping people, now using the same care, the same curiosity to create stories that help kids feel brave, welcome, and excited to learn. The Fred the Snake series now includes 10 wonderful adventures, from getting mended to going to school to exploring cities and beaches with friends, and every one of them is filled with heart, humor, and connection. We loved having Dr. Peter on Reading with Your Kids, and I can tell you, educators at the COSPA conference love Fred the Snake just as much as we do. So if you're looking for stories your kids will laugh with, learn from, and want to read again and again, meet Fred the Snake. Because with Fred the Snake, the real magic happens when we choose kindness and become a friend. This episode of the Reading with Your Kids podcast is brought to you by Follow the River by Ellen Cochran. What would you do if you fell from the sky into the Amazon rainforest? That's not fiction. That's the incredible story behind the book Follow the River by Ellen Cochran. On Christmas Eve 1971, 17-year-old Julianne boarded a plane with her mom in Lima, Peru. The destination was home, a research station deep in the Amazon jungle. But just 20 minutes after landing, disaster struck. Lightning hit the plane, and Julianne was thrown 2 miles through the sky into the rainforest below. When she woke up the next day, she was alone. Her collarbone was broken. Her glasses were gone. She only had one shoe, and she was surrounded by one of the most dangerous jungles on Earth. But Julianne remembered the lessons her scientist parents had taught her and began an unbelievable journey through the Amazon. For 11 days, she walked, survived, and followed the water until she found help. Follow the River is a breathtaking story of courage, resilience, and the incredible strength of the human spirit. If your family loves stories like Hatchet or I Survived, this is one adventure you won't want to miss. Discover Follow the River today, a true story that proves that sometimes the greatest survival tool is hope. Join us right now from the beautiful state of Pennsylvania that I just drove back and forth through. What a great place. Our guest is here today to celebrate her new picture book. It's called A Black Girl and Her Braids. Please welcome to the show, Jaylene Clark Owens. Jaylene, how are you?
I am doing wonderful. Thank you so much for having me.
My friends, you're listening to a podcast. I should make this a video podcast because Jaylene's smile is just radiating here. It's just look fantastic. She just looks so excited and happy to be here. So tell us about A Black Girl and Her Braids.
Yes, this is my first picture book, published with Penguin Random House, and it is a children's picture book that was inspired by a viral poem that I wrote of the same name. I released that poem in 2021 and it resonated with thousands, and it made me say, you know what? I should make this into a picture book. I had pitched a different book, didn't really go anywhere, but in pitching the first book that I was going to write, I learned so much about the publishing industry. So then when I decided to pivot and say, hey, maybe this would be the idea for the book, I already had laid the groundwork and I knew what I was, I knew a little bit about what I was doing. And yeah, now this book is a book that celebrates Black girls and their hair, and it is a celebration of Black girlhood, and it is encouraging young people to love their hair no matter what style they have, and just reminding them that their hair is unique and special and that they should be accepted everywhere the same way their hair should be accepted everywhere.
I absolutely agree with that. I'm missing so much hair, and it bums me out. But the idea that we should, it's really kind of sad when you think about it that we have to write books to let kids know that they should be loved and accepted and their hair should be cool and all that kind of stuff. But the reality is we do have to write these books.
Mm-hmm. That is the reality. And, you know, one of the things when I first wrote the original poem back in 2021, I knew I wanted it to be a celebration of being a Black girl and having braids, but I also wanted to include information about the Crown Act, the legislation that we are looking to pass across the nation, that will protect people and allow us to be able to wear braids, locks, twists, things like that, both at school and at work. And so it was very important for me to also include that in this picture book. And so there's a spread where you see our little girl holding a sign that says, support the Crown Act. And yeah, my goal, I would love it if the Crown Act was passed everywhere in this country so that no matter where you are, you can feel safe wearing your hair in professional environments and not feeling like you have to change or, yeah.
Yeah. It seems crazy that here in 2026, we have to pass legislation. Now, I'm almost 100. I did get grief when I was a kid and I had, believe it or not, Jaylene, I had hair at one time and it went down past my shoulders and it was beautiful. It was magnificent. It was blonde and curly, and I kind of knew that it wouldn't be accepted in a lot of places because before that, guys were wearing my dad had a crew cut, and he famously when he met my beautiful wife, before she was my beautiful wife, he said, hey, did you meet, I know you met Jed's brothers. Did you see a picture of his sister? And my wife's like, I know. He has a sister? You didn't say anything. And he went and he got my high school graduation picture. And he said, this is.
Oh my goodness.
But, we hear, I hear stories of indigenous kids, Native American kids being forced, males being forced to cut their hair, and hearing you, it's hair. What difference could it make?
Yeah, one of the lines in the book talks about how, my hair is unique and special, and it is. It's unique and special to whoever you are, and if you want to wear it in braids or in an afro or in locks or long or short, that should not be something that is discouraged. It should be something that's encouraged, because it's a part of you. It's a part of your style and your swag, your fashion sense. Sometimes my hair is, just as much as part of my outfit as whatever shoes I have on. So it's a form of expression. But also when it comes to braids, braids are deeply rooted in Black culture, going all the way back centuries to Africa, and the many different ways that braids were used to signify status, to hide seeds, to map out roots in the braids in your hair. So it's like, it's not just a style. There is special significance to the braids and to various hairstyles. And I want all little kids to feel like, yeah, I feel beautiful with my hair, however it may be.
Absolutely. Hey, was there one moment or incident or experience that inspired initially the poem and then the book?
Yes. So in July of 2021, I was visiting one of my best friends, Hala. She was living in Los Angeles at the time. And I went out there and I got my braids. I got these medium knotless braids. And I went out there and we were just taking pictures, walking up and down Rodeo Drive, not buying anything, but literally just frolicking around, taking pictures. And I was like, I just feel so beautiful. Like, I really love these braids. I love how they look on me. And I was like, there is something special about being a Black girl and having braids. And I said I wanted to capture that sentiment in a poem. And I knew I wanted to include information about the Crown Act. And so while I was in LA, the beginning part of the sound that went viral for my poem came to me, a Black girl in her braids, a Black girl in her braids. And I recorded that on my voice note. And then I said, I'll write a poem when I get home. And I did. And that was truly the inspiration for it. Just feeling good on vacation with my braids.
As I'm speaking to you, it's obvious that you have lots and lots of confidence and joy in your heart. Have you always had that confidence and joy?
I think so. I mean, there are times when I feel like people would tease me, definitely. And it would be frustrating, but it didn't make me feel like I was ugly or anything. Like, I know in high school, middle school, I guess it was around middle school, I was teased for having dark skin by other dark skinned little boys, which is just so horrible. But that didn't make me feel bad about having dark skin. It just made me feel like, it upset me that, why are you teasing me about this? Like, this is not something, like, I love my skin. You should love yours too. So yeah, I would say my parents did a great job at always affirming, my beauty and my natural beauty. And so I felt beautiful, and I didn't question that. But I have had times where other people around me didn't think that, and I wish that I had some of the language today then. Yeah.
It sounds like your parents probably were like me, and with my daughter, I know she's a very beautiful young woman. She was a beautiful kid, and everybody would tell her. Mm-hmm. And one of the things that I would say to her, and it might have been, we're on the road. It might have been in Pennsylvania, but we're somewhere, and the waitress came by and she had a plate full of things, and she dropped the plate. And she says, "Oh my goodness, your daughter is so beautiful. She took my breath away." And my daughter looked at me like, "What's wrong with her?" And I said, "You are beautiful, but you're beautiful on the inside. Outside, great, you're lucky, you're pretty, but it's more important to be beautiful on the inside." Absolutely. And I have a feeling that that's something that your parents told you when you were a kid.
Absolutely. Being respectful, being nice to others is so important. And so, yes, having a kind heart is even more important than the looks. As you said that story, I just thought about the fact that, yes, as a child, even though I loved who I was and whatnot, there was a time when, like many Black girls, I felt like my hair, my natural hair, like I felt like I had outgrown my mom doing cornrows in my hair, and I felt like that style was too juvenile. So I wanted to, I wanted to look older as I was getting older. And eventually I started to feel like I should straighten my hair. And there's nothing wrong with straightening your hair. What the problem is that I felt like I needed to straighten it to feel like my most beautiful self. And even though my parents were like, I don't think you should, but I kept asking. And so eventually I did get a relaxer in my hair. And, I felt good for a while as I stepped out of the salon with my hair blowing, but eventually, like many Black girls, the relaxer caused damage to my hair, and my hair fell out. My hair, it hurts when you get the relaxer on your hair. It's burning your scalp. It just was not good. But I had to go through that period of time. I wish I didn't go through that, but I did, and I have certainly learned now to embrace my hair. And now we have so many styles. Like back then I didn't have all these YouTube videos to watch and TikToks to show you how to do your natural hair. So I'm so grateful that exists now for this generation, and that books like this one, like A Black Girl and Her Braids, exist so that hopefully little girls can feel like, yes, if they want to straighten their hair, that's fine, but hopefully they don't feel like they have to look beautiful.
Mm-hmm. Now, is the book a direct, did you take the poem and just turn it into a picture book, or is it very different?
It is an adaptation of the original poem, because the reality is, even though it's called A Black Girl in Her Braids, really the original poem is catered more towards Black women. Mm-hmm. So I adapted it to make sure that it was speaking to young people. So yeah, some of the lines you may hear, some of the things that are the same, like definitely the song in the beginning is the same, and that is in the book. But other lines have been changed a bit. Mm-hmm.
Are you able to share the song with us?
Yeah. A black girl in her braids. A black girl in her braids. Can't tell her nothing. Please don't touch it. You know she looks amazed. A black girl in her braids. A black girl in her braids. Protective style for a while. It's one that always slays.
All right. Yes. All right. Excellent. Excellent. Hey, how did it feel initially when that poem went viral? And then when it became a picture book that you're able to hold in your hands?
Yes. Oh my gosh. Seeing it go viral was just incredible, because I was like, wow, thousands of women are using my poetry, my music, my song. Like it was amazing. As a child, I would often write songs. Like I used to write a lot of songs all the time. And so to now come back years later and I write this song, this poem, and people are singing it, people are dancing to it, people are using it in their videos, that meant so much to me. And then seeing like certain celebrities that I grew up watching use my work, it meant so much. Particularly Tia Mowry from Sister Sister. I literally used to write about Tia and Samara as my heroes when I was in school, when I was in elementary. Every time we got the assignment, write about your heroes, I would write about them because I just loved them and I wanted to be an actress and a singer just like them. So then to come years later and see Tia use my work, use my poem in her video, it was mind blowing. It felt amazing. And so to now take that and now I'm able to use this book to empower young people, it truly makes my heart sing. It warms my heart so much. Every time I visit a school and see these kids dancing to the poem and talking about their hair, it makes me feel so good.
That's wonderful. You mentioned school visits. How much fun, and because I've done thousands and thousands of school visits. Yeah. How much fun is it being in front of kids and singing and sharing your poem and sharing your book?
It is truly, oh my gosh, I love it. It is so much fun. The kids are something, especially because mostly I'm seeing K through second grade, but I've literally visited from 3 years old to like 8th grade. The kids, they ask the most amazing questions. Sometimes it has nothing to do with what you're talking about. Sometimes they just want to tell you that they got new shoes.
Uh-huh.
So it's like a little game. I can figure out, okay, how do I turn this question or comment back into something that relates to the book? But in addition to reading the book, I teach them this little song about loving their hair. And that is the most fun because it has little like dance movements, and they repeat after me and they do their little dance and they sing about loving their hair, and they love it. I do like little TikTok dances, and that blows their mind when I do that. And so it's a lot of fun. It's a lot of fun, and it is work that I truly enjoy doing.
When I was driving through central Pennsylvania last week, and I drove by a town not too far from State College called Lock Haven. And it reminded me of a show I did at a Catholic school. And it was so much fun. And the kids were into it so much. It was a very cold morning. And I remember there was one point we had one of the 8th graders up on stage with me, and we're doing a skit. And the kids were laughing so hard. And I was having a great time. But I started hearing there was 3 or 4 kids that were coughing and having like an asthma attack because they were laughing so hard. And so I had to pull myself back. I'm like, oh, I don't want one of these kids to die in the middle of my.
Yeah, that would put a damper on things. That would
put a damper on things. Tell me one thing. We have a lot of authors and aspiring authors on the show. You mentioned that, you had a book. Your first attempt at a children's book kind of didn't go anywhere, but you learned a lot. So then when you pitched, and did you pitch it to an agent, or did you actually pitch it directly to Penguin?
So with my first book that I wanted to do, I learned all about writing a query letter and using that query letter to try to get an agent. So I was pitching agents. Okay. And then I found, in my research, I found New Leaf Literary Agency, and I went to the contact page to see who I reach out to, and I saw a familiar face. I saw my former classmate from Frederick Douglass Academy, Jania Carter. We went to the same school, same class. That was my homegirl from 7th grade through 12th grade. And I was like, girl, I didn't know that you were a literary agent. So we connected. I pitched that first book. It didn't really go anywhere. But then in like a year, I said, what do you think about me pitching a Black Girl in Her Braids? And she was like, yes. And then she took me on as a client. And so now she is my agent. And then she pitched me to the different publishing houses.
How difficult was it for you to allow your illustrator to tell part of this very personal story?
Oh my goodness. Brittany Bond. Brittany is absolutely incredible. Penguin brought me a gem. Penguin is the one that gave me the different illustrators. I think they presented maybe 3. Mm-hmm. And I knew I wanted to go with Brittany because her work, her drawings of braids were so detailed. And I said, well, for a book called A Black Girl in Her Braids, I got to go with someone who's drawing detailed braids. And for each spread in the book, they asked me to write maybe 2 or 3 sentences about what I want to see. And I did that, and Brittany just brought those words to life. She brought the vision to life. She added her own vision to it, things that I wasn't even thinking about. So it wasn't difficult at all. I think the most difficult thing was, okay, I'm picking this person. I don't know them. It's not like they're sending me examples of what I would see. I just have to I have to base my decision to pick this person based on what they already have. And I was like, okay, that's scary, because what if they did their previous drawings well, but they don't do my book well? Like what? But I just took a risk, and I said, hey, I knew I loved her work. And so I went with her, and she far exceeded anything I could imagine. She's incredible.
Wonderful. Hey, Jaylene, I'm gonna tell you something I haven't told anybody for a long time.
Okay.
I think I can trust you. There was a moment in my life when I had hair covering all of my head that I had. It wasn't braids; it was cornrows.
But those are braids.
Okay. All right. Well, so I had, and the reason I was working, I worked in human services before I started performing. And at one point in my life, I worked in a, detention facility for the 5 most violent female offenders in Massachusetts. And one night we were in, and it was just me and another woman working, and the tensions were kind of hot, and we were afraid things were going, and I was like, I don't want to get into any kind of, hey, girls, can you braid my hair? Can you put it in corn? So the 5 girls came together, and they braided my hair. It hurt like anything. It was the most painful thing I ever went through. But it was like a group project, and they all got along, and there was no violence that night. And I walked around with my beautiful braids for.
Oh my gosh. So braids help to ease the tension.
Yes,
I like it.
Brought peace to the life.
Like, there you go. There you go.
Tell me, now that Black Girl in Her Braids is in the world and you're a published children's author, have you caught the bug? Is this the first of many picture books that you plan on creating?
We'll see, but I would love to do more. I certainly would love to do more. I mean, I already had an EP called A Black Girl in Her Hair, which has a black girl in her braids, her fro, her twist, her locks, and her switch up. So naturally, if I adapted braids, I could see me adapting some of those other poems also into children's books. But, I also want to do something for the boys. A lot of times during the school visits, the boys ask me about a book for them. And so that's something I'm considering. But also just, I love this world. I love this world of being a children's book author. And I can see different ideas that I could expand upon, and just my work as a spoken word artist, I think it just flows very nicely into being a children's book author as well.
Yeah, absolutely. We should tell everybody where they can go to find out more about A Black Girl and Her Braids, maybe some of your spoken word art, and also more about you.
Yes, you can find all of that information out by going to JayleneClarkOwens.com. You can find information about the book. You can find my spoken word poetry. You can find the wonderful kids show that I'm on, Albie's Elevator, that comes on PBS Kids. You can find out all that information there.
We've had a great time speaking to the author of A Black Girl and Her Braids. It is the new picture book from our guest, Jaylene Clark Owens. Jaylene, thanks so much for being on Reading with Your Kids.
Thank you for having me.
Hey, this episode of Reading with Your Kids is brought to you by AspireDrinks.com. Hey, I have a quick question for you. Have you ever wanted a little extra energy, but not the kind that makes your heart race or leaves you crashing an hour later? Well, that's exactly why I want to tell you about Aspire Drinks. You'll find them at AspireDrinks.com. Aspire calls itself a healthy energy drink, and honestly, that description really fits. Instead of loading you up with sugar or extreme caffeine, Aspire delivers a gentle, steady boost with 80 milligrams of natural caffeine from green tea and guarana. That's about half the caffeine of most energy drinks, enough to help you stay focused without the jitters or the crash. It's also 0 sugar, 0 calories, and 0 artificial additives, which makes it a great choice for parents, teachers, and anyone trying to make healthier choices while still getting things done. And get this, it actually tastes great, light, crisp, and lightly sparkling, with flavors like sweet cherry, raspberry acai, mango lemonade. That's what I love. No heavy aftertaste and easy on the stomach. Aspire is packed with B and C vitamins, biotin, and ginger. And it's vegan, gluten-free, keto-friendly, really designed for real life. And just for Reading with Your Kids listeners, you can get an exclusive discount of 20% off. That's the highest discount available when you shop at AspireDrinks.com and use our promo code READ. That's READ at AspireDrinks.com. Healthy energy done right.
Attention, this important consumer alert is brought to you by CBC Funding. Hey, did you know it's possible to receive upfront money from your structured settlement, annuity, or pending lawsuit? It's true. If you are receiving a structured settlement spread out over time and you want a lump sum amount delivered immediately, then you need to call CBC Funding. With your cash today, you can pay off credit card debt, pay medical bills, fund your education, or improve your home. You don't need to wait. Structured settlements are commonly used to resolve personal injury lawsuits. Annuities, they're designed to spread payments out over 10 or 20 years. For many of you in need of money today, this simply does not work. If you have a structured settlement and you want cash now, call CBC's Settlement Funding. Here's the number.
800-442-0665. 800-442-0665. That's 800-442-0665.
This episode of Reading with Your Kids is sponsored by Ramble Office. You know, before I tell you about Ramble Office, let me tell you about what travel used to look like for me. When I take the Reading with Your Kids studio on the road, it was like a lot. I had one box for the mixer, another case for microphones, a satchel for my laptop, cables everywhere. And I always felt like I was forgetting something. That's why Ramble Office really clicked with me. Rambo takes everything I used to juggle, tech gear, personal stuff, and puts it into one smart, great-looking unit that's designed to be a mobile office, not just luggage. Everything has a place. Everything stays protected. And when you get to where you're going, you're ready to work. Instead of digging through bags or repacking your life every time you move, Rambo keeps your setup organized and ready to deploy. Travel days stop being chaos and start being productive. It's sleek, modern, built for people whose work doesn't stop just because they're on the move. And if your job follows you, whether that's podcasting, teaching, consulting, or creating, Ramble is worth a look. Go to RambleOfficeAnywhere.com, all one word, RambleOfficeAnywhere.com. Use the promo code READ, R-E-A-D, and receive 5% off any product. It's exclusive for Reading with Your Kids listeners. Check it out today, RambleOfficeAnywhere.com, promo code READ. Join us right now from the beautiful Garden State of New Jersey. Our guest is here today to celebrate her brand new debut picture book. It's called Frizzy Lizzy. Please welcome to the show, Liz Leonard. Hey, Liz, how are you?
I'm fantastic. Thanks for having me, Jed. It's a pleasure to be here.
I should have introduced you as the decidedly not frizzy Liz Leonard, because I understand that Frizzy Lizzy was inspired, it's kind of autobiographical?
Yes, it is. It is autobiographical, and unfortunately, I do have curly hair. But unfortunately, I did a terrible thing that many people with curly hair do, unfortunately, and chemically straightened it many, many years ago. So on a personal note, that has been a challenge for me. But luckily, my daughter, Isabella, has very curly hair. So I've fortunately passed that on to her.
That's what, isn't it weird? So my beautiful wife has, and my daughter, both have curly hair, not really tight curls, but curly hair. And they take this thing called a curling iron and they straighten their hair. Mm-hmm. And I have a niece who has very straight hair and she uses the same device to curl it. It seems like we're never happy with what we've been born with.
Yes, and that is definitely a lot of the inspiration for the book, right? It's important for children to be proud of who they are, and sort of not be influenced by, all of the digital things that we are influenced by these days. So that is very much a strong undertone of the book, obviously by the title, but yes.
So tell us a little bit more about the story we're going to experience when we sit down and read Frizzy Lizzy with our kids.
Yeah, absolutely. So first off, Frizzy Lizzy is about a 7-year-old girl. She has, of course, very frizzy hair, very curly hair. She also has purple in her hair. And the purple is meant to signify a couple different things, but there's seems to be a little bit of magic that she's capable of. And when I say magic, I mean sort of everyday serendipitous magic, and I'll talk a little bit about that. But she's the youngest of three sisters. She's often made fun of by her older sisters. She carries a pocketbook. She always seems to be prepared. And her parents are divorced, which I felt was very important to include in the book, because that is the reality for so many children these days. She's kind of spunky and creative and clever. And in terms of the story, which again is based on a true story, she spends the weekends with her dad, and she loves doing so because they spend a lot of time outdoors. They do, biking and hiking, and one day their father explains to them that there is a secret lake in the woods that they've never seen. So they journey off into the woods, and of course, Frizzy Lizzy takes her pocketbook with her, and they end up getting extremely lost. Unfortunately, their father was not prepared, which many people have been skeptical about, but I assure you that part is true. And they find themselves sort of on the side of a highway, but the father doesn't have his wallet, and so there's not much that they can do. So Frizzy Lizzy ends up saving the day because, of course, in her pocketbook is some money and a snack. And the money is used for a payphone, which many children these days don't know what that is. But it is used to call their stepmother, who ends up picking them up.
Very, very cool. Of course, being a dad, I love the fact that this is a story about a daughter and a dad. And my daughter and I found ourselves broken down on the side of the highway at least a couple of times. She used to come out and tour with me doing my educational magic shows. And, and we always seemed to break down in like the middle of nowhere. But, that's such a neat story. I know that the book was inspired by your life, but what was it that inspired you to share this story as a kid's book?
Yeah, absolutely. I think really three things inspired me. One is becoming a mother. It's just such an incredible, really ongoing journey that is unexplainable, but just such a magical thing in itself. And so, as I'm sure you know well, we all spend a lot of our times tucking in our children and reading them bedtime stories. So that definitely sparked creativity, which is actually part of my background. I went to art school. I studied fine art. And I actually did animation. So I've always been a storyteller. But working a corporate job, I felt like I lost some of that creativity. Mm-hmm. So I started the project, and it was about a 2-year journey. And I really just wanted to speak to children who don't necessarily have an atypical family situation. I did have a pretty complex childhood, and want to sort of speak to that, to help children and to normalize, some of the challenges that, many kids face, on a daily basis.
That's interesting. The idea that kids, because I think one of the things that as adults we do is we sit down and we think, kids, they have it so easy. Their life is great. They go to school, they have summers off, and they go to ballet. But as you were sharing, your own life was pretty complicated, and you're not unique in that. And there are lots of kids' lives who are pretty complicated. And I remember my daughter, one of her best friends, her parents split up, and she would spend 3 days a week with her mom and 3 days a week with her dad. And then there was a day that was kind of tossed up, and she had 2 sets of clothes, 2 sets of everything. And, you know, I love the mom, I love the dad, I love the girl, but it just seemed like, wow, this is a lot for a kid to have to deal with. Can you talk a little bit about, you know, growing up in that situation and how it made you feel?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think that, you know, divorce is just such a complicated thing, you know, as you said, for a child to live through. And, you know, to be honest with you, actually, my parents separated when I was very young. I was about 3 years old. But my sister, remembers a lot of what occurred. And it was just a very ugly divorce. Sometimes things happen amicably. Unfortunately, in my situation, it didn't. And so there was, a lot of, you know, court battles and custody battles, that we were, of course, thrown into the middle of, you know, as children. It's interesting, actually. My husband and I, one of our very good friends, who has a 6-year-old, and a 4-year-old, is actually getting a divorce right now. And I just feel, so bad for the children, because, you know, the parents have to sit them down and have to explain to them, you know, what is happening. And for a 6-year-old that really truly understands the complexity of that, and, it can be isolating, it can be confusing, and just honestly quite sad. You know, your family, your rock, is no longer, together as a crew. So, it can be a strange journey. But yeah.
And I think it's important for us to really consider that. Thankfully, my parents, it was tough. Our family was dysfunctional in many ways, and I think now, if that family situation had been, transported 4 or 5 decades into today, I'm sure my mom would have left my dad. But they kind of worked it out, and in the long run, they were very happy together. But it's so difficult on the kids, and I think, the cliche is you see the parents in the sitcom sit down with the kids and say, "Oh, but it's not your fault." Exactly. And that makes it okay. And now the kid says, "Oh, thank goodness it's not my fault. Now I can live in these different households and not worry about it at all." It's an ongoing thing. And I think there are lots of parents out there that are very sensitive to that and, are dealing with it and giving the kids the support they need. But I don't know if every family is aware of the turmoil that they put their kids through, or that kids have to go through.
Yeah, absolutely. And to your point, I mean, I think, even to go back to our friend that I referenced earlier, I mean, they are doing an incredible job. We spent some time with them as they were going through this, and the parents were together, right? And so they're keeping their unit together, even though there's clearly been a very dynamic change between, the husband and wife in this situation. But I respect them tremendously for, approaching it in a manner like that, because it is very important.
It sounds like they're very much aware of what's going on with their kids, and just because you decide that you can't live together anymore doesn't mean that you have to hate the other person.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Wow, this interview got very, very deep, and we should be back and talking about nice, fun, frizzy hair. What is it about frizzy, curly hair that you miss the most?
Well, it's just wild and free, and it's almost artistic by nature, right? It just has its own personality. It's a crown. I mean, it's just awesome. And, I think women need to be proud of who they are and, what they're supposed to look like, not what the world tells us, what we're supposed to look like. So, it's important to instill confidence in children. Gosh, I think all the time, one day my daughter's going to come to me and, say, can I straighten my hair? And we're going to have a little talk about that. Of course, I guess I'll let her do what she wants to do, but I hope she doesn't want to do that. But I think, Frizzy Lizzy, also, stands up to a little bit of bullying, that often happens, with her older siblings. So there's definitely, a light, touch on, sibling relationships as well. Which is lovely, but her sisters do have straight hair. She's the only one with curly hair.
The only lucky one with curly hair.
Exactly.
I'd love to, this sounds like a really fun book, and it sounds like you've hit it out of the park in your first, at bat. But one of the things I'm really impressed with is I'm on your website, and lots of authors come on and they talk about, this is going to be part of a series, and we have, 2 books, 3 books planned, maybe 4 books. But I'm looking at your website, and wow, there are, I think, 11 Frizzy Lizzy books in the works, and some sort of in progress.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm actually having a book launch party in a couple weeks here, and I'll be revealing the cover for the next book in the series, which is about friendship. And so I don't want to reveal too much, but Frizzy Lizzy does make a friend, which of course is very important. But yeah, I mean, this is such a passion for me. It's been incredible. I've partnered with an amazing illustrator. With a full-time job, I knew that I couldn't, illustrate this myself, but her style very much mirrored what some of my older drawings used to look like. I also have to respect her time, right? Because as I'm trying to push out these books, of course she needs time to create her, highly detailed work. So I think I'm going to take this series in a lot of different directions. I work in the travel industry full time, and so I love the idea of having Frizzy Lizzy visit different cities and different destinations. I think travel is something that makes us more aware of the world and the cultures around us. I'm fortunate that I get to do that often. And some children don't. So I'd love to kind of take them on a trip with Frizzy Lizzy to different destinations. So that's another angle I'll be eventually going in for sure.
Well, I love that too, because in addition to helping kids learn how to love themselves and accept themselves, I think it's really important for us to help our kids understand that this is a big, beautiful, diverse world, but it doesn't matter what language a person speaks or what they look like or what they dress like. We're all part of one beautiful human family, and travel is one way to help us understand that.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Any reaction so far from your daughter about the book and kind of reading about your story through these pages?
Yes. So she is just over 2.5 years old. It's funny. She knows the book by heart. I used to read it to her just from my cell phone as it was a manuscript, before the illustration started to, get in the works. She knows it by heart. She loves it. She just asked me today, can we read Frizzy Lizzy? I think she thinks it's about her, which is totally fine because that's the point, right? Everybody has a little Frizzy Lizzy in them. We want everybody to be, proud of who they are and be confident. So yeah.
Yeah. I'm curious. I've learned a lot about the book industry and how books are created. And, I know that there are kind of 2 ways that picture books come into life. And one way is where the author, you kind of work with an illustrator and kind of direct them and give them ideas. And then the illustrator comes in. A lot of the bigger publishing houses, they'll buy a manuscript and they'll say, so long to the author, and give it to an illustrator, and the author will never see anything from the illustrator until the book is done. With somebody with a background in illustration and art, was it hard for you to sit down and let this go and let your illustrator have at it and just be as creative as they can be?
Well, actually, no, not at all, because it's such a collaboration. I just, to your point, first of all, I didn't have the time to really pitch this to publishers. But secondly, I knew that I would be letting go of the creative aspect and the control and the illustration, which was like incredibly important to me for this project and for all of my projects moving forward. So I found, Catherine Hillier, who's my illustrator, and I storyboarded the whole thing. I drew it out myself. I mean, every single detail in the book is intentional, was decided by me. So I really oversee the art direction, down to the color of their shoelaces. So, I sometimes drive her crazy, but she is so incredible. She's actually based in the countryside, about an hour outside of London. She's amazing. So it wasn't challenging to let it go, because in many ways, and now we have we're like best friends. We're very far away, but she's incredible. And I love the collaboration. I love, being able to go back and forth and say, I don't know if the sneaker should be red. What do you think? Maybe should we go, send me a couple different options. And, there's a lot of Easter eggs in the illustrations. I had her, put her initials on the pocketbook. So many little things. So, it's a pleasure to work with her. And she's just incredibly talented, and she really is a freelance illustrator, full time. Mm-hmm.
That's wonderful. As I'm looking at your website, I see that Lizzie's going to go to Paris and Hong Kong and Tokyo and some other places. Where is your favorite place to travel?
Ooh, wow, that's a tough question. I spent a lot of time in Ghana, in West Africa. It is such an incredible place, and I have to say that is definitely what comes to mind when you ask that question. I was actually on the board of a humanitarian organization, and we did some humanitarian efforts and medical efforts there. Spent a lot of time with children. Went for 4 years and made a lot of friends. It is a beautiful country. The people are incredible. I actually spent some time in a Liberian refugee camp. I can't say enough. It's such a special place to me, and I'm really, really hoping to take my family there. But it's a little complicated. There's lots of shots that you need, and most importantly, I want my daughter, who we call Izzy, I want Izzy to remember the trip, and so I think we're going to wait on that. But if you have the opportunity, I encourage you to go to Accra, which is the capital, and Cape Coast as well. Just an incredible country.
Wonderful, wonderful. Well, speaking of travel, we need to let our listeners know where they can travel to find out more about you and find out more about Frizzy Lizzy.
Absolutely. Well, they can go to frizzylizzy.com. All of the places that you can buy the book on Amazon, all of the major websites. But I do have available on my site, some author signed copies, which I'd encourage everyone to purchase. I also, I'm trying to get better at Instagram. So you can, check me out there at Frizzy Lizzy Books.
We've had a really fun time speaking to the author of Frizzy Lizzy, debut picture book from our guest, Liz Leonard. Liz, thanks so much for being with us.
Thank you, Jed. It was a pleasure.
We hope you've enjoyed this episode of Reading with Your Kids, and will join us for the next exciting episode of the show. If this episode made you smile or gave you something to think about, please consider sharing a link to the show with someone you love. Leave a 5-star review and subscribe to the show wherever you find your favorite shows. We'd also love for you to connect with us on social media, facebook.com/readingwithyourkids, at Reading With Your Kids on Instagram, at Gently Magic on X, our YouTube channel, youtube.com/readingwithyourkids, and our website is readingwithyourkids.com. Want to thank the folks who made today's show so wonderful, starting with our guest, Jaylene Clark Owens. Please be sure to check out A Black Girl and Her Braids. Also want to thank Liz Leonard. I want to thank my team, Chris Doherty, Jackson Sotelaro. I want to thank my beautiful wife for all the support she gives me. Most of all, we all want to thank you. Thank you so very much for taking the time to join us today. And as always, thank you so very much for taking the time to make the world a better, more kind, more empathetic place. And you do that every single time you read with your kids. I'll be looking for you in the next episode of Reading with Your Kids.